Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Metal Magdalene with Jet right here on Metal Messiah Radio. Tonight, I have a very special guest with me. I have Marc Reign, the drummer of Morgoth. Welcome to the show, Marc.
Hello. Nice to be here.
So, Marc, before we get into what you're doing now, tell us a little bit about yourself. Now, were you born and raised right there in Germany?
Yeah, that's true. I was born in West Berlin, and I grew up when the Allied forces actually were still here, because West Berlin was like an island in the communist part of East Germany. Mm-hmm. So it was actually, my mom took me out to a German-American fair where there were always big bands. So I was always mostly observing the drummers. So she bought me a plastic drum set when I was 6.
Aww. So what's nice about that is, you know, your mom supported you in this, pushed you into this almost.
Yeah.
Well, so that's cool. So you got to go to shows and stuff with your mom as a kid?
I mean, it was more actually like a fair, and there was some big band music, you know. But yeah, then I got this plastic drum set, which I pretty soon destroyed because, you know, the foot pedal was just made of plastic, so and the heads were shitty. But then I had somewhat like a jazz teacher when I was 12.
Oh, that's cool. So you got yourself a decent kit finally?
Yeah.
And you took lessons?
Exactly.
And so like you said, it was jazz, so you kind of have like this jazz background, so then you probably like the old jazz drummers when you were learning how to play drums.
Yeah, I had to study stick control, you know, by George A. Lawrence Stone, and those things, and Jeff Morello stuff, and the double strokes, and the swing grooves, and even lots of Latino he did. So it was like mostly playing on small kits, not like the double bass, one bass drum, 2 tones maybe.
But wasn't it fun? I mean, I know a lot of people when they first start learning, they always learn the jazz stuff, but it seems like it's so much fun playing that kind of stuff, though.
Yeah, you get all the books and you just go through your rudiments, you're practicing your rudiments, and then do your homework, and yeah, it was 1 hour a week, so next week I knew what to practice, and then I came back to the teacher. I did that for a while.
So Marc, when was it that the metal bug hit you and you were like, ooh, I gotta start playing this, or rock, or whatever?
I listened to like AFN and BFBS. Like I said, in West Berlin we had those Allied forces, and they had their own radio stations, like the American and British ones. And they mostly played like a whole side of an album, like Let's Have You Rock, AC/DC, the whole A side. And since I was a kid, I had no money, so I just recorded it on a cassette tape. So I was listening to it more and more, and then Victim of Changes by Judas Priest and the AC/DC early with Bon Scott influenced me a lot, so I got into it, I guess.
So there you go. So Bon Scott was a big influence because that's what you heard mostly over there. And like you said, you know, what about like this?
Along, trying to be imagining like I was Phil Rudd and playing along AC/DC, and then of course I developed, and then I wanted to play more fancy stuff, so I listened to Iron Maiden and Rush and all those bands, and then of course Slayer came up. Those bands, of course.
So when did you have to add that second bass drum, Marc?
It's a good question. I mean, I started with 12 with a teacher. While I had the teacher, I think it was 17 or 18, I was in a band that was more like the Motorhead type of tempo band. So I got myself a Pearl double pedal, which I could use also on one bass drum.
So how long did it take you to get used to doing that then?
Actually, pretty quick. I mean, with a jazz stuff, I also used the hi-hat a lot to go through the changes. I mean, the independence. So my left foot was always doing hi-hat stuff. So yeah, it took me maybe 1 year to get those grooves.
Oh yeah, that ain't bad at all. So what's the music scene like now in Germany now compared to like when you were a kid?
Good question. I mean, yeah, it's better. I mean, Rammstein came up from the east, the wall came down, so different influences from all over came across. And Scorpions were always there, and except of course, but it changed more to extreme metal, I think. The death metal scene developed more because there were lots of underground bands and underground festivals that came up since the 90s.
So were you in like some, metal-y bands before you really started getting going there with Destruction and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I was like in a crossover band, which mixed up more like the funky stuff, like Mordred,
Mm-hmm.
Funky and hardcore, fast tempi, but not so much double bass. We had a record deal with Noise Records with Ganja. It was more like a crossover hardcore band. But then I had this underground death metal band, pretty technical, called Ors, or RTH.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a little deal with Morbid Records, which was like a small label. And then we played Fuck the Commerce festivals and those kind of stuff that we had over here. Like the NDF early days.
Cool. So of course, one of the biggest bands we know you from is Destruction. So how long were you with them, and how did you get that gig, Mark?
I was like 9 years in Destruction, like from 2001 to 2010.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it was weird. I was together with a girl at the time, and her sister was together with a guy that worked for Metal Hammer. So he was from the area, moved to Berlin from where Schmier, the lead vocalist, the bass player of Destruction, came from.
Mm-hmm.
And in a way, he hooked me up with him because I met him at the, not Fuck the Commerce, but Full Force Festival.
Mm-hmm.
Full Force Festival is also a big German thing, which mixes up hardcore and metal. And he was playing there. So I just talked to him, and then suddenly from this guy I knew, he got my number via the Nuclear Blast guys, and then suddenly I had his voice on my voicemail. That was pretty cool. Like in the old days where you still answering machines. So I just gave it a try. I took the train. I mean, it's a long ride from Berlin, and I said to him, why you live so far away? It's almost on the border to Switzerland. He said, hey, if you're good, I pay half the. I pay one ticket, but if you're good, I pay also the back ticket.
So did he pay your back ticket, Mark?
I didn't have to pay the city train.
So at the same time that you were in Destruction, now were you also in Volcano too?
Yeah, I think it cut over a little bit. Yeah, first I didn't do Volcano, but then, pretty much, yeah.
So tell us, what was it like when you were in Destruction? Okay, so now you're in this band, and you're touring, I'm assuming, all over the place. What was it like for you now to be in that band? Yeah,
it was overwhelming, of course. Suddenly touring in South America, Australia, Japan, and all that, and lots of US tours as well, which was lots of fun. And yeah, it was a different story, like getting used to a nightliner and stuff,
mm-hmm.
which is luxury, of course. Of course, you can sleep always when you want, between sound checks and shows, or you go to bed when you want, so that's cool.
So
before I had this, I had a job with Mystic Circle. It's more like a black metal thing. So I had one like nightliner tour before I joined Destruction. But still, it was, kicking me out into the orbit of touring, so to say.
So what were some of your most memorable shows with them? Was it like the first one you did, or was there something magical that happened at any of those Destruction shows for you, Mark? I mean, the first two was pretty overwhelming because we did this thing with Sodom and Creator. So It was a totally sold out tour all over Europe. And then we even continued doing it in Bolivia and Chile and Brazil and then the States. So those first years, like 2003, 4, 5, were really totally killer. I cannot say which show
especially was the best. I mean, it's hard to say, but we had some killer shows in big like stadiums in Brazil and stuff. That was pretty impressive, yeah.
So what finally led you to leave Destruction, Mark? Now we must hear the dirt.
I mean, after a while, I was touring, and yeah, maybe we couldn't see our faces anymore, you know, being trapped in the same bus with the same people for such a long time. So after a while, I got bored, and plus they switched, they changed also the label. They went to AFM, from Nuclear Blast to AFM.
Mm-hmm.
No, they went back to Nuclear Blast, and then I had the feeling that the shows and the whole thing was deteriorating a little bit. So yeah, I left, and
but it seems, you know, as soon as you left Destruction, it's like you were picked up by Morgoth, you know, right around that same time when Morgoth was regrouping after splitting up. So how did that all come about?
So it's weird. Actually, it was 1 year in between where I was like hanging in the balance a little bit, hanging in the air. But then two guys of the Morgoth group, the former frontman, Marc Reign and Sebastian Swart, they lived in Berlin. So I went to a Creator show, and since I knew Miller of Creator, he hooked me up with those guys in the backstage, because it's like due to the old connections I had via Destruction, I met the other dudes like 1 year later after I left. That was that was cool. I mean, that was luck, of course.
But so were you like a fan of Morgoth before you started playing with them?
Actually, I was. When I was like 19 or 20, cool. I saw a show in Berlin, and I was pretty impressed by the dudes. I thought that they were like from the Florida American scene as well. Since somebody told me, no, they're Germans. I said, what? They had that sound. I think they were touring with Demolition Hammer or with Pestilence, and once with Obituary. I was like, what? They sound like the Americans.
and you still sound like the Americans a little bit. You got that Obituary kind of edge going there. Now, when you started out with Morgoth there, did you play any shows prior to the new album? I mean, were you touring with them before they did this new one?
Yeah, sure. We had the Rock Hard Festival and also a Wacken show in 2011, and those big festivals we did. And yeah, like a small weekend tour, not long tours. But then we had this Bolt Thrower tour with Bolt Thrower, which was pretty amazing and like a killer tour just before we did the album. Before the album came out, actually. So
now, last December, right? You're like you were saying, the vocalist left, long-time vocalist. So what part did he play in the new album, and why did he leave?
Yeah, actually, he didn't leave himself. It was like a vote. We had some bad live shows with him. Maybe, I think he had stage fright or something. Sometimes he was like intoxicated and didn't do his job well. Even one show at the Bolt Thrower tour, and then we had this Italian show in between the recording sessions, where he almost like fell into the bass player's bass. So after that show, the guys decided to work with him anymore. I don't know. Maybe there was even trouble from the past. It was hanging like a cloud over their heads. I was pretty new in the band, so I didn't know actually what was going on. But then suddenly they decided not to work with him anymore. We did like 2 jam sessions, like in the studio, where he was just doing some phrasing without any lyrics. So actually on the album, we all wrote the lyrics. I wrote, for example, the lyrics for Dire Deceiver, which was like a single before the album came out, like a teaser. And he just did some phrasing of the old songs before the new singer came up. So we gave him some credits for as a composer for the phrasing, which was actually pretty cool for us. But he didn't put. There are no lyrics from him whatsoever.
Okay, so I was going to ask you, because I'm a little fuzzy when all these singers were coming and going, and the album's coming out. I don't know who the hell did what on this album. So did your new singer do anything for the album before it actually got recorded? Did he do any kind of writing, or was it all said and done by then?
it was almost everything said and done by then, because we all together did the lyrics and stuff. But actually, yeah, he came pretty late. But on 2 songs, Voice of Slumber and Black Enemy, he added some of the lyrics, like a third of percentage or so of those 2.
Oh, okay. So, well, that kind of answers that question. So the album, On God, for everybody that doesn't know, came out in March on Century Media Records. So far, how has it been received by people? Getting a pretty good reaction from it?
Yeah, of course, there was a thing with the old singer first. It was, no, how can this happen? There will never be a good Morgoth again. But since I heard the album, all the voices, the critical voices switched. Then it changed, because Carsten Jäger, the music from Disbelief, also his second band, he still has, did a great job on this album, and it sounds like Marc grew in the past. It sounds like really low end voice. And, oh, there's a phone ringing here. Shit. The low end voice, and whereas I think Marc Reign was already doing this more like a hardcore voice, a little more higher pitched than he sounded when he was young. But that's just my personal impression. But.
Well, when I heard it too, I was, just like everybody else, you got a new singer in there, you're a little bit skeptical, like, oh shit, what have they done? But it sounds good, so I was like, phew, I always get so nervous, even though it's not my band. I'm like, oh god, that's got to be so stressful just to get it out there, but he sounds so great, and he kind of reminds me of like an old school Florida death metal singer, it sounds, and I love it,
Yeah, of course, we were really like hanging in the balance there in the studio. How do we continue now? I was like, are you guys crazy? You're kicking the singer out now because he did that shitty job on the Italy show, but then we were voting. I was the last one that would have given him a chance, so I was outvoted, so... Yeah, but what now? We are in the middle of the production. Everything is already recorded. I just had to record one more song, but I didn't even know which singer was doing it at the time being when I recorded the bonus track song, this cover song we did.
But it came out fine, so now you don't have to worry. And now you don't have to worry about any of the antics or anything. That makes it a lot less stressful.
Yeah, not anymore.
No, not anymore. So did you guys record it locally?
Yeah, we recorded where the guys actually originally come from, the Sauerland area, which is like a mountain range close to the coal mining area of Dortmund and Essen, in that area. And we had like a nice house next to the studio where we could stay.
Oh, nice.
So it was pretty cool.
So what could you tell us about this album then, Marc? What could people expect when they buy it and listen to the whole thing?
Old school death metal, of course, with some, it has a variety of tempi. It's not like one tempo going through. It has different kind of grooves. If it's triplets or, straight up fast beats, even beats that come close to blast beats. Of course, not high-speed blast beats because it's still old school style, but it's pretty aggressive. And it has like an analog sound. It has a warm analog sound. It's not like a digital drum production which sounds like plastic. Like lots of bands doing nowadays, especially the double bass sounds.
Well, it sounded good to me, and I even wanted to ask you too, because I personally love Ciro Anton. Whose idea was it to use Seth for your art for this album?
Oh. That's a good question. I think our manager, Leif Jensen, the vocalist in Do Sent It, he's mentioning us. I think he had this idea. Because the guy we used for the single was a different one. And he came up with some ideas for the album, which we didn't like so much. But he did a great job for the single. But then we switched to this guy. But I don't know the details of that.
Okay, well, he has great art out there, and he does a lot of covers, and and you recognize his art right away, so that was the first thing I recognized when I saw your cover. I'm like, oh, that's got to be something that Seth did, and then I went back and had to read your thing. Yeah, it's awesome. So, Marc.
The bands do.
So, Marc,
Yeah.
For our little drummer friends out there, are you endorsed by any drum companies right now?
Yeah, I have a drumstick deal with Regal Tip. And D-drum drums. I'm working on this right now. And pasty cymbals.
Oh, nice. So I'm assuming that you're playing a D-drum kit right now.
Yeah, that's true.
So tell us what's going on now as far as tours for the rest of the year.
Yeah, I mean, we have this festival season, and then I think there's no plan made up yet for touring. But we will see what fall will bring.
So in the back of your minds, then, are there any plans on coming to the States anytime soon?
Hopefully. We played the Maryland Death Fest all right, and it was cool. And the Barge to Hell, this cruise. But a tour would be killer.
And okay, well, Marc, I think we got just about everything covered here, so I'm going to let you get going. But thanks for coming on the show to tell us the drummer's view of Morgoth and about the album and everything else.
Yes, thanks for having me.
And I'm going to let you get going, and, all the best for you and the band, and have fun out there in your summer tour season.
Thanks a lot.